Boundaries. That word is used so often, and for some people, they might really have a great relationship with that word, and then some people might not. In this video, we're going to talk about boundaries, why they're important, and ways that you can establish better boundaries in your circumstances. Okay, so first of all, in order for us to even really set boundaries, we have to understand what they are. So simply put, boundaries are essentially guidelines we set for ourselves and others in our lives. They really help navigate what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, helpful, harmful. We really have them as guidelines so that we can not get walked over or walk all over other people. I think it's important to note here that without good boundaries, it's easy to get stressed, overwhelmed, feel like you're the mat underneath someone's feet, or you might actually be that person that is walking all over people. So brings me to the next point. What are the whole benefits of saying no anyway? What are the benefits of having boundaries? So in my opinion, I think the biggest thing when it comes to boundaries is when you set them, there's a fear of what's going to come after you say no. And this can be with family, it could be with friends, it could be with situations, work, all of it. When you say no, there's a lot of like this negative perception of what could happen. And we have fear of getting rejected, of just being sort of called out, and then we get in our heads about it and don't actually implement the boundaries in the first place. So with all that being said, it is somewhat counterintuitive in your head to say no, but saying no can actually set up consistency, and it can really help you with setting better boundaries and actually improve your relationships with people. So I think saying no in a lot of situations can help really improve not only your health but others' health as well. And just as far as mentality goes, it can really help be just a better consistent person in your life and in other people's lives. It could increase energy, it could reduce stress, it could reduce overwhelm, it could reduce you being in your head about stuff and really worried about what the other person's going to do, say, or if they're going to reject you or not. So all of that being said, I want to make a point real quick. It's not about rejecting the other person. And I'm using the word rejected a lot here, but you're not rejecting the other person. You're not getting rejected. Boundaries are actually a healthy thing because you are communicating what your limits are. If you don't communicate those things, how is the other person going to know? How are other people going to know what your limits are? And so it could build respect for you to be able to communicate your boundaries to other people in a healthy way. Okay, so how do you even set up boundaries, right? So I'm going to make a few points here, and the first one being is you got to start small and just have realistic expectations. And when you're setting boundaries, you want to really, you're probably at the point where you've needed to do this a long time and you really just need to get it out, right? So I think starting small so that you can maintain consistency is one of the best things to keep in mind before you even start to communicate. When you get to the point of communication, the next thing to remember is that you have to be clear, you have to be direct, and it has to really just be straightforward. Beating around the bush does not help in this situation, and you have to be able to just be direct. Being direct is not aggressive, though. You're not going to just throw all of your guns in and just come at the other person. It's going to take some time to get used to this because this is not something that you've really engaged in for I don't know how long in your situation, but it's not something that you're used to. The last thing I want to say is it's okay to feel uncomfortable and you're not going to get it right the first time. And I think you have to really give yourself some grace and compassion for this process. Getting used to this is not easy, and yeah, it's going to be difficult, but I do want to remind you that you do have to start somewhere. So that leads me back to the first point I made. Start small. And if with time and consistency, it can get better, it can get easier, and you can have better boundaries with yourself and other people. So remember, boundaries aren't these things that you have to be scared of, and remember that fear is really the biggest part when it comes to not establishing boundaries in the first place. So I think really the first step is identifying like what are your boundaries to setting boundaries, like what is coming up and I meant boundaries in a negative way, but like what is coming up in your head that is keeping you from actually making boundaries with other people. It's important to sit with. Of course, I'm going to make a plug here and say if you're struggling with this, therapy is a great tool, and getting to talk to somebody that can see it from an external perspective not just in your head, is going to be really beneficial. So I think that that's a good option. Go to therapy, as a therapist would say, right? But I hope that you enjoyed this. Remember, click that subscribe button so that you can subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.